Okay, so getting ready for an environmental education officer interview. Pretty cool. We're going to dig into RoleCatcher's resources today. It'll be like having your own personal prep kit, not just for answering questions, but like really acing them.
What's really interesting about this job, I think, is it's for people who really want to make a difference. You're not just teaching people about the environment, you're kind of like shaping how they see it.
Definitely. And this guide really emphasizes that giving presentations, designing websites, even leading nature walks, like one day you're in a classroom, the next you're out in a botanical garden.
And that goes right into the skills you need. The guide talks a lot about communication, but not just talking to anyone. You might be explaining a complicated topic to kids one day, and the next you're presenting a plan to adults.
It's all about making the environment, like, relatable for everyone.
Speaking of relatable, let's dive into some interview questions, the kind of questions they always ask. We'll break them down, see what the interviewer is really looking for, and figure out how to make your answers stand out. Ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, first up, can you tell us about your experience in developing and implementing environmental education programs? What's the strategy with this one?
They don't just want a list of projects you did. It's your chance to show you understand how to take an idea and actually make it happen. Think about a program you designed. What were the steps? What made it work?
So it's all about showing your process and the results. What would a really strong answer sound like?
Let's say you started a recycling program at your last job. You could say, in my previous role, I noticed our recycling rates were low, so I created a program with educational workshops. We made fun signs and even had a little competition between departments. The result, our recycling shot up by 15% in just 3 months.
Now that's a great answer. You laid out the problem, your solution, and the positive impact. Okay, what about this? How do you stay up to date with the latest environmental education trends and research?
This shows how dedicated you are to always learning. It's one thing to love the environment, but are you actively looking for new info, new ways of doing things?
Okay, so how do you prove you're a lifelong learner without sounding like you're bragging?
You have to be real. Instead of just saying you read articles online, mention actual publications like Environmental Education Quarterly or Nature Conservancy magazine. Have you gone to any workshops or conferences lately? Sharing that kind of stuff shows you're actively trying to learn and grow.
And I'm guessing saying, I don't have time for that is a big no-no.
Yeah, for sure. It makes it seem like you don't care about growing. It's actually okay to admit there are things you're still learning. Being humble goes a long way.
That's good advice for any interview, honestly. Okay, here's one that often trips people up. How do you engage diverse audiences in environmental education programs?
This is about being inclusive and understanding that people connect with the environment in different ways. The interviewer is looking to see if you can change up your approach for different people and learning styles.
So how do you show that, especially if you haven't worked with a ton of different people before?
Even with limited experience, you can still talk about how important inclusivity is. Maybe mention an article you read or a presentation that opened your eyes to different teaching styles.
So showing you're aware and willing to adapt, even if you're still getting experience, what would a strong answer look like in action?
Say you're trying to make a nature walk more fun for families with little kids. You could say, I know kids learn best by doing things, so I'd include interactive activities like a scavenger hunt for leaves or listening for birds with those kid-friendly binoculars.
I love that, tailoring your approach for the audience. Okay, before we get to more questions, I want to touch on how RoleCatcher's AI can really change the game for interview prep.
It's true. It analyzes job descriptions, pulling out the skills employers really want. So you're not guessing what they want to hear, you're giving them exactly what they're looking for.
It's like having a secret code for job postings.
Yeah,
And you can even get feedback on your practice answers, right?
exactly. It's like a coach in your pocket, giving you suggestions and helping you feel more confident.
Talk about a game changer. Okay, back to our questions. This one seems basic, but it's important. Can you provide an example of a successful environmental education project you have implemented?
This is your moment. Pick a project that really shows what you can do, how you solve problems, and the good that came from it.
So what would make an answer amazing?
Details, details, details. Instead of just saying, I organized a community cleanup, paint a picture. How'd you get volunteers? Any challenges you had to overcome? Did you get funding or donations?
It's about showing you can take charge and get things done. What about things to avoid saying?
Don't just tell them what you did. Instead of, I made a presentation about recycling, talk about the challenges, the solutions you found, and the actual results you got.
So it's about the whole journey from idea to reality and the impact you made along the way. What if someone's newer to this field and hasn't done a huge project yet?
Focus on what you have done, even if it's smaller. Did you lead a nature walk for a small group? Create materials for a specific program? Even those things show your skills and what you accomplished.
It's a good reminder that even small experiences can teach you a lot and showcase what you can do. Okay, let's tackle this one. How do you evaluate the effectiveness of environmental education programs? This one feels more technical.
They're checking if you understand how important data is for making decisions and improving things.
So how do you show them you're really thinking about measuring impact?
Talk about specific ways you track progress. Do you use surveys before and after a program? Look for changes in knowledge or attitudes, or even see if people are changing their behavior over time.
So going beyond just saying, it was a success, and showing actual proof, what are some mistakes people make with this question?
Don't just rely on stories. While those are great, you also need to show you understand how to use data to evaluate things.
Right, it's about balancing those stories with actual numbers.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I wanted to mention how RoleCatcher's AI feedback can be a lifesaver here.
Definitely. You can actually put your answer right into RoleCatcher, and the AI will look at it, compare it to best practices, and check it against the skills they want in the job description.
It's like having your own personal editor, making your answers shine.
Exactly. It's a must-have for anyone who wants to rock that interview.
Love it. Okay, ready for a tough one? This one often throws people off. How do you incorporate technology into environmental education programs?
This is where you get to be creative. It's not just knowing PowerPoint. It's using technology to make learning fun and exciting.
Like, what are some examples? I'm thinking interactive maps, virtual field trips. What else?
You got it. What about VR experiences that take you to a rainforest or a coral reef, or those AR apps that help you identify plants and animals when you're on a walk?
Now, those are cool. I can see how that would make learning about the environment so much more real.
Exactly. But even simpler things like online webinars or using visuals and videos in your presentations can make a big difference.
It's about using what we have to make learning easy, interactive, and engaging. Now, what are some traps to avoid with this question?
Don't just list a bunch of tech tools without explaining how you actually use them well. Don't just say, I'm good at Canva. Talk about how you used it to make a cool infographic that made a complicated environmental issue easy for anyone to understand.
Show them you can use tech strategically to get results.
Exactly. And don't act like a tech genius if you're not. It's okay to say what you're still learning and that you're excited to try new tools.
Good point. It's not about knowing everything. It's about being open to new ways of doing things.
I like that.
Okay, let's wrap up this section with a strong example of how to answer this question effectively.
Okay, imagine you had to get teenagers excited about climate change. You could say, I know that teenagers are all about social media, so I led a campaign using short, powerful videos, eye-catching graphics, and even live Q&A sessions with climate scientists. This got them talking about climate change and made them feel like they could make a difference.
Now that's an answer. It shows you get your audience, you know how to use tech strategically, and you actually made a positive impact.
And it shows how important it is to connect understanding and action, which is really at the heart of environmental education.
For sure. Okay, let's look at a question that's all about teamwork. How do you collaborate with community organizations and stakeholders in environmental education programs?
This one really gets at your ability to build partnerships. It's huge in this field. They're checking if you understand that working together gets better results.
Like, you can't do everything yourself, right? Yeah. How do you show them you're a good collaborator?
Think about times you've teamed up with other groups. Did you work with a nature center on a field trip program? Or maybe you collaborated with a community garden to do some workshops about native plants?
Those are great examples. It's about making those connections where everyone benefits.
Exactly. Focus on what those partnerships achieved, not just for your organization, but for the whole community.
And what are some things to avoid saying? I'm guessing just saying I'm a team player isn't going to cut it.
It's way too vague. And don't be negative about other organizations or act like their work isn't important. Collaboration means respecting everyone's ideas.
That makes sense. It's about building relationships and working together to make a bigger difference.
How would you answer this in an interview? Like, what would a really good response sound like?
Let's say you were trying to get more people to recycle. You could say, I realized a lot of people didn't know much about recycling, so I worked with local schools to do workshops and hand out info at events. We ended up boosting recycling rates and getting the community more involved in taking care of the environment.
I like how that answer shows those shared goals and the positive results for everyone. Okay, here's one that dives into the impact of environmental education. How do you measure the impact of environmental education programs on behavior change?
This is about showing you get how complicated behavior change is and that you have ways to track long-term effects. It's not just about what people learn, but if they actually use that knowledge.
So you have to see if it creates a ripple effect. How do you show them you get that? Start by acknowledging that people don't change overnight. Then you talk about specific things you've done to measure changes.
Give me some examples of how you track that.
You could do surveys afterwards, asking if people are doing things like using less energy or buying eco-friendly stuff. Or you could look at community-level changes. Are more people recycling? Are they using less water?
So it's about finding clever ways to measure those changes,
Yeah.
even the small ones.
Exactly. And it's fine to admit it's not perfect. There's a lot that goes into it, and you can't control everything.
What are some things to avoid saying here?
Don't exaggerate and claim you did something you can't prove. Instead of saying, my program completely changed everyone's habits, talk about the specific changes you saw and how you tracked them.
Honesty and data are key. Okay, let's hear what a strong, balanced response to this question might sound like.
Let's say you ran a program to get people to conserve water. You could say, it's really important to measure if things are actually changing. After our program, we send out surveys asking people if they were using less water at home. We also teamed up with the water company to see if water usage went down in general. We can't be sure our program was the only reason, but the numbers showed that people were definitely thinking more about how much water they used.
That's a great example. It's honest, it uses data, but it still shows you accomplished something. Now, I want to mention RoleCatcher again. We talked about the feedback feature, but it does even more, right?
It totally does. Don't forget, RoleCatcher looks at job descriptions to see what skills they're really after. You can use this to make your resume and cover letter better, too, making sure you're showing them what they want to see.
So it's not just for the interview, it's for the whole job hunt.
Exactly. It's like having a career coach and a strategy guide all in one place.
So cool. Okay, let's look at a question that can really throw people off. How do you address controversial environmental topics in educational programs?
Oh, that's a good one. It means the interviewer is looking for someone who can handle tough topics with grace, respect, and a real commitment to having open conversations.
It's a tough balance. You're trying to teach and raise awareness, but you also want to create a welcoming environment for everyone.
You got it. It's about helping people learn and think for themselves, not forcing your own opinions or shutting down important discussions.
So what's the best way to approach a question like this? What strategies can you highlight?
First things first, emphasize that you'll stay neutral and objective. Present info from trustworthy sources without letting your own bias show. Encourage people to ask questions, acknowledge there are usually many sides to these issues, and make it clear that everyone can share their thoughts respectfully, even when they disagree.
So it's like you're a guide, not someone preaching from a soapbox. That takes good communication skills and being a good listener.
You said it. And it's okay to admit you don't have all the answers. In fact, saying you're still learning and are open to different viewpoints can actually be a good thing.
It's true. Being humble and open to learning are so important for any kind of teacher, especially with sensitive topics.
Exactly.
Okay, let's hear a well-crafted response to this question. What would that sound like?
Imagine you're leading a workshop on renewable energy. Lots of different opinions there, right? You could say, whenever I talk about something that could be controversial, my priority is making sure everyone feels respected. I present balanced information from sources I trust. I want people to ask questions and share their opinions, and I try to make it a discussion where everyone feels comfortable sharing, even if they don't agree with each other. If there are disagreements, I try to keep the conversation productive, focusing on shared goals and sticking to the facts.
That's a great response. It shows you're committed to being neutral, inclusive, and open-minded, which are all crucial when you're dealing with these kinds of conversations.
It really is about keeping things respectful, especially with something as important as the environment.
Totally. And it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Which reminds me, we didn't even get to RoleCatcher's AI voice and tone analysis.
Oh, right. That can really change how you do in an interview. Imagine practicing your answers, and it tells you how fast you're talking, your tone, even your facial expressions if you're using video.
It's like having an acting coach just for your interview. That would be so helpful, especially for people who get nervous.
It can make a huge difference. And it's not about being someone you're not. It's about being yourself, but like the best version of yourself.
Well said. I think we've given everyone listening a ton of great tips to help them walk into that interview feeling ready and confident.
And we've only scratched the surface. This RoleCatcher guide has even more about salary, career paths, all sorts of stuff about how to keep growing in environmental education.
It's an amazing resource for anyone who really wants to make a difference. So, to everyone listening, remember your passion for the environment and wanting to share that with others, that's what matters most. Let that shine and you'll do amazing.
Absolutely. Good luck out there. You got this.
And don't forget to check out RoleCatcher for even more career help. It's a game changer.
See you next time.
Take care.